Hey everybody, welcome back to Let's Talk. I'm your host John, and today here on the channel we're going to be talking about 1981's sci-fi western Outland and its brand new 4K Blu-ray that just came out from Arrow Video. But before we get into that 4K Blu-ray review, I always like to give a quick film review, and today is no different. So if you don't know anything about the film Outland and you're just here for that 4K Blu-ray review, you guys can skip ahead right now. So back in 1981, Peter Hyams wrote and directed Outland. And Peter Hyams, he's probably most famous for directing this film, 2010, The Year We Made Contact, which is the sequel to 2001: A Space Odyssey, directed by Stanley Kubrick. And then he also directed Running Scared, which I think is one of the best buddy cop comedies of the 1980s, right up there with the Lethal Weapons of the world and Running Scared. But unfortunately, it just doesn't get the same exact kind of love. But I had actually never seen Outland, so this was a first-time watch for me. It stars Sean Connery in the lead role as William O'Neill, a marshal who just gets stationed on the third moon from Jupiter. He's doing a one-year tour there, but when he gets there, he meets Peter Boyle's character of Mark Shepard. Mark Shepard is the general manager for this company, just like Alien, and a lot of things are taken right from Alien in this movie, but one big thing in the movie Alien, if you guys ever saw that, is the Weyland Corporation, and how that corporation only cares about making money and doesn't necessarily care about their workers. Well, this corporation right here, they don't really care about their workers necessarily, but Mark Shepard makes clear as soon as William O'Neill gets on the ship, like, hey, productivity, it's through the roof ever since I got here. So you know what? These guys, they work hard. Let them play hard too, all right? Just let them do their thing. Everything will be fine. But as time starts to go on, things start to happen, including one of the guys working here takes a prostitute hostage, because there are prostitutes on the ship. You know, there's a big kind of there's this like local economy on this space station. You know, you can buy hookers, you can buy drugs, you do the whole thing, you know, because it's such a like terrible environment that they're forced to live in. You know, it's a dark gray, almost like a prison environment. You know, they don't really have rooms or anything. Even, you know, he's the marshal, Sean Connery's character, and he gets like this, like, just like little apartment, and clearly his wife and kid just, they can't take it. They want to go back to Earth, and finally one day they get the courage while he's out to, let's just get out of here. We can't do this anymore. And they want him to come with them, but he can't. Because one thing I didn't point out yet is that this movie, I don't know if it's a full remake, but it's definitely a reimagining of 1952's High Noon starring Gary Cooper, where in that movie, a marshal rolls into town, but the people are so corrupt and just so stuck in this town and its ways that nobody's going to help him. And that's really the whole point of Sean Connery's character in this movie. Nobody's going to help him take Mark Shepard down. And unfortunately, for Mark Shepard at least, Sean Connery gets the better of him at one point, and Mark Shepard's like, all right, you think that's gonna really beat me? It's more of an inconvenience than anything. So he calls in a couple other hitmen to come in and try and take him out. Of course, this being a Western type of movie, and I'm you know, I am spoiling this movie, so if you've never seen it, you know, he's able to take these guys out, and then of course his new sergeant, because the previous sergeant, I guess he killed himself, or at least they made it look like he killed himself. His new sergeant betrays him now as well, but he takes them all out, and then he's able to go in there and punch Mark Shepard in the face and, you know, save the day like we hope he would. But this movie, like I said, it's very much a 1980s Western in space, ripping off Alien. I mean, Jerry Goldsmith even does the score for this movie. Jerry Goldsmith's score for Alien is one of the best scores of all time in my opinion, but of course it's just much more atmospheric, adding to the tension, adding to what the characters of the movie Alien are going through, and he brought all that over to this movie. It's not like that very like loud and like big score like maybe you would think it would have in this kind of movie. No, it's taken so much from Alien, it's got a very similar score to that. Even the opening credits are exactly the same as Alien. It even sounds the same. Remember how the Alien logo is like coming into view? We can't see it at first, as like the logo is starting to become clearer and clearer. They do the exact same thing with Outland, except it's just becoming more translucent, much more clear now. So they just took it right from that, and that's fine, because I do enjoy the anti-corporate measures of this movie. Like, it's not an alien film, even though they're in space. It's much more of a corporate movie. It's much more of a Western movie, you know? We're really trying to take down the corporation. And just like taking down any corporation, it's basically impossible for one man to do. And even Sean Connery's character is grappling with that throughout this movie. He's like, people are telling him, like, do you really think you're going to make a difference? He knows there's no chance. And that's just the same thing in the real world today, all these years later when it comes to a corporation. Not one man can make a difference, but you still have to try, right? It's one thing I always talk about personally, is like your own personal morals. can you sleep at night? Can you put your head on the pillow? Like, knowing that you're ripping people off or knowing that you're just taking advantage of people, like, can you put your head on the pillow at night just knowing that you came out on top? I personally could never do that. So I would be one of those people, at least I would like to believe I'd be one of those people like the Sean Connery character that would stand up to this huge corporation like this because it's the right thing to do. It's a lot easier just to blend in and do what everybody else is doing, but to actually like almost throw your entire life away and almost die, you got to appreciate like what he's trying to do. But he does get help from the Frances Shresthagen character. I hope I'm pronouncing her last name right. She is fantastic in this movie as well. She brings a lot of energy to the movie. Like at first you're like, oh, you know, she's just a little bit too outgoing. Like she's got a couple bolts loose, I would say, but she's really cool. She's always willing to help him out. Kind of reminded me a little bit of what's her name in Silverado. So, you know, just a very nice person who sees Sean Connery as a good man and a good man who's risking it all for basically everybody else, even if they don't realize. So she's willing to help him out. I appreciated that in this movie as well. Now, again, the cinematography, amazing in this film because it's an early 1980s sci-fi film, so they're using a lot of miniatures. You know, they're shooting this on these sets. The whole movie makes it look like it's night out because they're on the third moon from Jupiter, so of course it's going to look a little bit dark. So the interiors, everything is dark, dark, dark. Love how this movie looks. I really wish we can go back to using miniatures like this because the scope that it creates, I don't even think we can get that with CGI because CGI just gives that too computer-generated look. Computer-generated imagery, but it just gives it that look. Like, using a miniature, it still does look real. Even though we know it's not real, it's just a lost art form that I wish we would go back to, and it was something throughout 1970s and 1980s sci-fi that was just such a big deal. And overall, this is a fantastic film. Is it as good as Alien? No. Is it as good as High Noon? No. But it's still a great 1980s sci-fi western with a really good Sean Connery performance in there. The man doesn't get enough credit for how good of an actor he is. Most people just go right to James Bond or think of him in maybe The Untouchables, but the guy is a very good actor and he deserves to be appreciated for that because he gets a couple of good monologues in here that actually grip you. So I just want to give Sean Connery his flowers, even though Sean Connery doesn't need them at this point. He's fucking Sean Connery. So anyway, I can highly recommend Outland, even if you don't want to watch it on this new 4K Blu-ray that we're going to talk about right now.
Is still man.
And here it is, Outland on 4K Blu-ray, and this was a rare blind buy for me, mainly because it was so cheap on Amazon. I think it was 25 bucks, and I'd never seen the movie before. I had heard it's an Alien ripoff, and I was like, huh, maybe I'll check it out. You know what really brought me to check it out was the costume design. I love the look of the hats that Sean Connery's wearing and Peter Boyle's wearing in the movie. I like those kinds of hats. I wear a baseball hat every day. I don't know, they just look like badasses in their uniforms in this movie. Like, you know, just regular blue-collar workers. And that's something I really appreciated about the movie in general. Not to just piggyback off the film review we just did, but love the look of the blue-collar workers, the full beard. As a man who appreciates a good beard, Sean Connery was pulling that off in this movie. But anyway, checked out the movie. You can check out the film review just before we did this 4K Blu-ray review. Thought it was great. Thought it was a great time. But anyway, one thing I didn't love about this physical media release was this slipcover that you have over. Now, the art is reversible, so you can reverse this to the original movie poster art if you like, which I'll probably end up doing. But I didn't really like all these colors because it's not a very colorful movie. It's actually a very dark movie, taking the color out of it. So when the colors are in the film, they actually stand out. So I just don't think of these like rainbow colors, these rainbow muted 1970s colors when I think of this movie. So I don't know. I'm not too sure what they were going for with the artwork. It just doesn't fit the film, in my opinion, even though it is pretty nice. You also get a poster right here, some reading material. That's pretty cool. It is a one-disc set, so you are not going to be getting a Blu-ray packed in here. That means all your special features are going to be on that 4K Blu-ray. And there is a good amount of special features. I really did appreciate that. One thing I really enjoyed was there's this video essay in there looking back on the movie and pretty much giving you a making of, but it's just one person talking about entirely how the film was made. I really did appreciate that featurette. Thought it was awesome. So even though there's not that many extras on here, the ones that are on here, I did really appreciate it. And for a movie like this, you can clearly see that this isn't Arrow Video giving the full Arrow Video treatment. It doesn't come in a morbidly obese box. It just got the slipcover treatment, which is fine because I don't know how many people are aware of Outland. And honestly, even for me, this is one I probably wouldn't have checked out if I hadn't had heard how good of a film it was from other people and like, hey, you know what, maybe you should check Outland out. And I saw it for such a cheap price, thought I'd give it a whirl. So getting it like that, then picking it up with all those new extras on it that I'd never seen before, really appreciated. But how is the audio and visuals? Well, you got two audio tracks. You could have one LPCM track, or you could have a DTS HD Master 5.1, which is what I chose to watch this with. And it was fine. I mean, I didn't really expect to get my socks knocked off on this one. It's an early 1980s film, as long as everything came in crisp and clear. Given it's an action film, there's a lot of, they're using like old-fashioned shotguns in this movie as well, really give it that Western vibe, that like gritty kind of feel to it, even though they're in space and it's the future. You would want that stuff to all sound like really good and give it a really big bump in your system. Unfortunately, it's not gonna do that. It's just a fine audio track, and really that's all that it is, but hey, it gets the job done, and I guess that's all we can really ask for. Now, the visuals, you get HDR10 and Dolby Vision. I had nothing to compare this to because I had never actually seen the film before, but I thought it looked phenomenal. I mean, we're hitting the deep blacks. Like I said, this whole movie, it's at night because there is no sun. The sun ain't shining on this moon and Jupiter, so it's pretty damn dark on all the sets. Anytime they're even outside of the spacecraft, completely dark, so you're hitting those deep blacks. It looked great. I really did think it looked phenomenal. Not one of Arrow Video's best releases of the year, but again, if they've had releases that have hit 10 out of 10 visuals, even Dark City, which is another movie that takes place completely at night and there's really no sun until the very end of the movie, if you were to compare the two, I would still say Dark City looks better, but Dark City also came out in the late 1990s in comparison to a movie that came out in the early 1980s. For a movie that came out in the early 1980s, the amount of detail that you can see in this movie, the colors, anytime there is a lot of color, it pops off the screen. I thought the visuals were about like a 9 out of 10 quality. I thought they were really good. And overall, this is a great release from Arrow Video. It's not one of their breakout releases of 2025, but if you're somebody who enjoys the film Outland, I could definitely recommend it. If you're somebody who's never seen Outland like myself and you were to blind buy this movie, as long as you like movies like Alien and you like westerns and you're a fan of Sean Connery, I think it's a pretty good blind buy because I had an absolute blast watching this one, and I definitely will be watching it in the future, so I'm glad to have it in my physical media collection. But what would I give this one a score of 1 to 10? I would probably give Outland on 4K Blu-ray just your pretty damn standard 8 out of 10. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it here for me on another episode of Let's Talk. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this video if you could. We also have channel memberships, guys, so if you want to become a friend of the channel, a producer for the channel, like Harvey Scott, Ben Rondo, and John Doe Juggalo, you can do that, or you can even bump it up to the channel. Directors like Kevin Kruger, Uncle V, Frank from Frank's Media and Reviews, Stone, Gasman, and Nicholas Head. Or if you'd like to, you can bump it up to the channel bankroll members like Mr. Smelly Potato. But of course, guys, if you got no money to throw my way, I don't mind at all. I just hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you did, get out in those streets, tell your friends about us, and then we'll be seeing you around.